What's up everybody on YouTube? AJ Rose back to discuss another video, and today we're going to be talking about why the 2023 NBA season is going to be fun but also strange. Alright guys, so by the title y'all probably like, what is this dude talking about? Like, it's going to be a really good season. Looking forward to the NBA as always. Basketball for sure my favorite sport. Obviously y'all see that I posted about the NFL too, but there's nothing like the NBA and basketball for me. It's been my favorite sport since the 4th grade. Been playing it since I was around 6 years old, so just love everything about it. And of course hoops for sure, and the NBA this season is going to be really intriguing and really competitive as well. I think that honestly every single night, every team is going to be competitive in terms of putting up a tough fight. Obviously, there's going to be blowouts throughout the year because teams come unprepared at times, you know, injuries and things of that nature happen. But in terms of like trash teams, people who were bad last year, for example, like the Houston Rockets, they added a lot of depth and veteran presence, for example, for them. And also a team like the Pistons are going to have Cade Cunningham back. Those are just some examples. Of course, Orlando Magic, they have a trillion guards. I don't know how they'll work that out, but of course they still have Paolo Banchero, Rookie of the Year, also play on the FIBA World Cup team, and things of that nature. So this season is definitely going to be competitive, but also we have to talk about stuff like James Harden, Daryl Morey's situation. Of course, Dame elaborating more on that with him being on the Bucks now. Of course, I made a video about that, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. And then we're also, of course, going to talk about Jrue Holiday going to the Celtics, the Phoenix Suns, how they've added depth and things of that nature, the Lakers having a really good team going into this year from the jump. So it's a lot to talk about for sure and a lot of storylines. But with that being said, guys, before I get into the video, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe and turn on post notifications. I post videos about sports, lifestyle, and pop culture. So with that being said, let's go on and get into the video. So obviously by this thumbnail today, guys, I have Dame, I have James Harden, and Victor Wembanyama in the thumbnail. We can talk about them first for sure. And of course, I'm going to branch out to other teams and players and storylines. But we got to talk about Victor real quick. Of course, in the summer league, Wemby played, and at first he had a rough start, but then he ended up getting his rhythm, being able to show his versatility. And now he's truly one-on-one and a unicorn at his 7'4" height, being able to be dynamic as a scorer, as a shot blocker on both ends. But in these 2 games in the preseason so far, and of course it is preseason, so we're not going to overrate it, of course, but against the Heat and against the Thunder, he's been looking scary for sure. His most recent game this past Friday in the preseason against the Miami Heat, he had 23 points, shooting 10 for 15 from the field, 1 for 5 from the 3-point range, which isn't that impressive, but I think that he'll still garner respect from the 3-point line. Had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks. People are underrating his instant impact that he's going to have as a defender. For sure, I can see him winning Defensive Player of the Year multiple times in his career, but I don't know if y'all saw that little poster that he had against Thomas Bryant. Even Thomas Bryant was impressed by it. I'm sure y'all saw that on social media. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, Victor is really going to be good. And of course, you're going to have different rookies like Chet Holmgren, who he did play against last week in the first preseason game. And Wemby had 20 points in that game, shot 8 for 13 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3-point range, 5 rebounds and 2 steals in the block in only 19 minutes. But yeah, Wemby, Chet Holmgren. Of course, we have to talk about Scoot Henderson, who's going to have a profound impact, and Portland is going to have a huge year, I feel like. And the Portland Trailblazers, I think they're going to be really competitive. Of course, they traded for Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon in that Celtics trade when the Celtics acquired Jrue Holiday. So they're going to be solid. And of course, they got DeAndre Ayton from the Suns in the 3-team deal, which sent Dame to the Bucks. So it's going to be intriguing for sure all over the Western Conference. But talking about Wemby some more, I think that the Rookie of the Year is going to be his to lose. Even against Chet, Wemby looked better in my opinion, and Chet looked really good because he only played 16 minutes and shot 70% from the field and had 21 points. But Wemby, he's gonna make the Spurs really relevant again. And not to say that they were just supremely irrelevant. Well, I guess you can say they were because they haven't been making the playoffs the past few years. But with Wemby coached by Popovich, being the next heir apparent to the likes of Kawhi Leonard, Tim Duncan, and David Robinson, Victor Wembanyama is for sure poised to be the next Spurs great. And I'm ready to see it for sure. Of course, he has so much height and media attention. I don't think it would be crazy to say that he could be an all-star his rookie year. Just depends on how he's going to play against people like Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, who have more of bigger frames. That's going to be a big test, but his length is going to be able to make up for his frail size right now. And of course, he'll be able to add muscle throughout his time in the NBA. But for sure, I think Wemby, he's going to have a huge rookie year as long as he can stay healthy. That's one thing, of course, with his size, not only being tall, being 7'4", 7'5", but how skinny he is just going to see how durable he is. But he was pretty much durable in his time overseas, so we'll see what happens. Definitely hoping he has a great year. But I think Wemby, that's what's really going to be fun about this year. We can talk about something strange right now, of course, in James Harden. We all know what he said about Daryl Morey a couple months ago.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of again.
And now, of course, he showed up at training camp when the 76ers had training camp in Colorado to get their conditioning right. And really, in my opinion, I don't think that he should be trying to force his way to the Clippers. I see the sentiment to want to win a championship, but bro, you've requested trade from 3 straight franchises. We've all talked about that. Everyone's talking about this. Like, at some point in a relationship, things aren't working out. It might be you. And James Harden, he put up some stinkers in the playoffs last year. Of course, he did have those 2 40-point games against the Celtics, but at the end of the day, the 76ers, they were winning against the Celtics in the second round up 3-2, but they folded. And that's unfortunate, but I feel like with the 76ers, with James Harden and Joel Embiid, that's his best chance to win. For the Clippers, you can never trust him. Of course, Kawhi Leonard is one of the top 5 players in the league when healthy, but you have to underline when healthy because you never know when something will happen. And also Paul George, of course, he's a top 15 player when healthy, but you never know with him as well with staying healthy. So I just think that James Harden with Tyrese Maxey, with Joel Embiid, with even added bench players like Patrick Beverly and still having PJ Tucker, that's his best chance to win in the East. Now, obviously, the East got better because of Dame going to Milwaukee, so that's going to be an uphill battle to climb. And if James Harden stays in Philly, I think they're for sure the 3rd, maybe even 4th best team right now, depending on if James Harden takes a step back because of his age. He did turn 34 in August. But honestly, I don't see the premise of James Harden wanting to ask out besides the fact that Daryl Morey must have promised him a max contract and then just didn't follow his word. I feel like that's the gist of what happened. But honestly, if I was Daryl Morey, I don't know why he would promise him that at first initially. You could see the drop off happening with James Harden's game, and of course he's known him for over a decade plus from the time back in Houston, so I understand the friendship aspect about that. But James Harden isn't that same MVP player that we saw. He's definitely an all-star caliber player, and of course we see with his playmaking, he's still as efficient as possible, but it's just a terrible and really strange and uncomfortable situation. And I'm a Rockets fan, honestly. Well, I support them, I'll say. I'm more so of a Derrick Rose, Devin Booker, and Luka Doncic fan, but I still support the Rockets. And when he was in Houston and requested a trade, looking all big and stuff, it just was really a crappy time. So I don't wish that for the 76ers franchise and some of my friends who are Sixers fans, but that's definitely a strange and uncomfortable situation, and we'll have to watch how that happens in Philadelphia. And of course, we can talk about the rest of my quote-unquote fun thumbnail with Damian Lillard on there. We all know Milwaukee is going to be a championship favorite and a championship contender. Now having Damian Lillard, they're already a championship contender without him, but just adding him really pushes the needle for them to have even more pressure to win. But ultimately, that's the goal for them. Damian Lillard, he wanted out of Portland because they were stuck, and they've been stuck for a few years now. Honestly, he could have been axed out. Better late than never. And he'll have his opportunity to be able to be in the Eastern Conference playing alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo, Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis. I mean, they have a really good team still. Really great team, honestly. And for sure should be the East favorites, but I would make the argument that the Celtics could still beat them, which I'll talk about in a few. But the Bucks, they're going to be scary for sure. It's going to be hard to guard Giannis and Dame, because if you put too much on Giannis, you're going to leave Dame open. He's going to, like he said, make 9 threes, just go crazy from the 3-point line. He has Steph-like ability. I think Steph and Dame are for sure the only 2 point guards that we've ever seen in NBA history that can pull from the parking lot. You have no question about it. Dame is definitely an all-time great shooter, and we all know this. So that's going to be really good in Milwaukee and really fun to watch them play. But it really comes down to that. I think I would argue, besides the Phoenix Suns, have the most pressure on them to win. I want to talk about the Boston Celtics real quick, because I did just mention that I would probably pick them over the Bucks to win the Eastern Conference. Yeah, that might be crazy to say, but not really if you really look into it. Jrue Holiday, he is very underrated offensively. Of course, defensively, we know that he's probably the best point guard defender and guard defender in general in the league. But offensively, he can still score too. In the past 2 seasons, Jrue has averaged around 18 to 19 points per game and around 7 assists as well and 4 rebounds. So he's been around that all-star level, and of course he was an all-star last year. So just seeing him being on the Boston Celtics now, who were one of the threats to Milwaukee, is going to be some getting used to for sure. But with him, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, it adds another dynamic and really an upgrade for Marcus Smart, in my opinion. I did initially hate the trade of Marcus Smart to Memphis for the Celtics, but now having Jrue Holiday is going to really present a lot of different things for them. And then of course having Kristaps Porzingis as well is going to be really nice for the Celtics. Kristaps Porzingis had one of his most healthiest seasons last year, as he played 65 games in the 2023 season. We'll see if his health will hold up this upcoming year, but I feel like if it does, the Celtics, they're going to look really scary in that front court too. And of course, Al Horford, he has been able to transfer his game from the 3-point line. You cannot leave him open. He's still a really good defender, but his age is going to be an interesting aspect, because think about it, if the Celtics have Porzingis or Horford out, they might be compromised a little bit in the front court. But I think if they're healthy, especially in the playoffs too, they could really beat the Milwaukee Bucks. And elaborating even more on that Jrue Holiday element, he'll guard Damian Lillard for sure, and that'll be an interesting matchup, because we saw when Jrue Holiday was in New Orleans and they played against the Portland Trail Blazers in the 2018 playoffs, The Pelicans dominated Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum in that series, and Jrue was a huge part of that. Not only did Jrue Holiday and the New Orleans Pelicans sweep the Trailblazers in that series, but Jrue Holiday played great offensively and defensively. He basically averaged 28 points per game, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds in that series. Also averaged 1.3 steals and half a block per game. So his presence all around, offensively and defensively, was really good. And of course, we're going to see how things are nearly 6 years later. But that's going to be a really good series in the Eastern Conference if we see the Bucks and Celtics potentially in the Eastern Conference Finals or in the second round, depending on how seeding goes. But don't sleep on the Celtics beating the Bucks for real. Let's go back to talking about the Western Conference. I did mention the Phoenix Suns earlier, so let's go on and talk about them. I think that they for sure are one of the teams with the most pressure to win the NBA Finals this year. Of course, you still have D-Book and KD, but now you have Bradley Beal on your team too, forming a potential scary trio in Phoenix. And it's looking like the Devin Booker is going to make the switch to point guard potentially, but still playing that combo guard role with Bradley Beal having the ball in his hands too. They have the opportunity to be great. It did add some depth, of course, from that Portland Trailblazers trade. And also in NBA free agency, they got players like Eric Gordon, Keita Bates-Diop, Yuta Watanabe, who was really good with the Nets. When KD was there, he was a solid role player, I would say. And then in the trade, they also got Nazir Little. They got Grayson Allen. They got Drew Eubanks. And of course, they have Bol Bol too, who's really going to be interesting, I feel like. He's a wild card. He had some flashes on the Magic last year, and Bol Bol, his career has been up and down so far, but I think that he could get things right in Phoenix potentially. But also, they also got Yusuf Nurkic in that trade. But they definitely have more depth and more size considering where they were in the playoffs last year, because they were so top heavy, having DeAndre Ayton, KD, D-Book, and Chris Paul, who ended up getting injured, and which compromised them against the Denver Nuggets. But the Suns, they have pressure on them. You have 3 the best scorers in the NBA today. Devin Booker, I think that he's a top 10 level player. He's going to continue to make a huge jump. As we saw in the playoffs, he was putting up historic numbers. And KD, we know who he is.
I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
An all-time great for sure. He just has to stay healthy. If KD can stay healthy, sustain playing a lot of games at the age of 35 now, which is insane, they're going to be fine. And Bradley Beal, he just turned 30. He's in his prime still. D-Book entering his prime. The Suns really don't have any excuse in this 2 to 3 to maybe even 4 year window to at least get 1 championship. Let's wander to LA real quick. Yes, sir. Shout out Juice WRLD. But anyways, yeah, let's talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. I do think that the Lakers will have a way better season than last year. And of course, that's saying something considering they made the Western Conference Finals. But we all know that regular season team, they were struggling to have to play in a play-in tournament. But from the jump, they're going to have a really good team. They have some of those players that they acquired at the trade deadline. And a little bit before, from the jump this year, they have Rui Hachimura still there. D'Angelo Russell re-signed. Jared Vanderbilt. They added Gabe Vincent and Christian Wood. And they also, of course, still have Austin Reeves, who's really skilled, man. And I like Austin Reeves' game, his poise, his confidence. I think he's going to continue to get better. He's not the fastest, most athletic, or most flashy person, but he's really skilled, and I like his game. And of course, you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. AD, we already know with him. When he's healthy, he's a top 5 to 10 caliber player. And sometimes we've seen his game be inconsistent, of course, in the playoffs as well. He would have one good game and then one bad game and just constantly seesaw between that. But if he can be consistent and be healthy this year, make a leap, as people have been saying in the Lakers organization that he's been committed throughout the offseason and putting in a lot of work, that could be scary. He could be a defensive player of the year candidate. Because when he's locked in, AD is hell to play against. And then we can talk about LeBron, of course, the second greatest player of all time, in my opinion. Don't shoot me because I think MJ is better. I hate when people get in their feelings about that. But anyways, LeBron being 38 years old, turning 39 in this upcoming December, at the level that he is, it's just insane. We never seen anyone have longevity like him in the NBA, of course, in the NFL with Tom Brady. But no one like LeBron. Really appreciate his greatness for sure. And he has an opportunity to win his 5th championship with this new revitalized Lakers team. Another strange thing that I'm going to have to continue to get used to is seeing Chris Paul in the Golden State Warriors uniform. Seeing him practice in training camp with them with that gold and blue on just seems so weird, seeing him in Houston for those couple of years playing against the Warriors in those conference finals, which the Rockets should have won if he would have stayed healthy. I feel like I will die on that hill because they were rolling too, and that really sucks, but I digress. It's going to be compelling to see how him, Steph, Clay, and Draymond play together, and if he'll come off the bench or not. Of course, they've been experimenting with Chris Paul starting in the preseason, but only time will tell with that situation. Chris Paul, he will be 39 in this upcoming May. Steph Curry, it's crazy to say because he's still in his prime, but he turns 36 in March, so times are ticking for sure in Golden State. They want to try and get Chris Paul his first ring and get the Golden State Warriors dynasty to a 5th championship in total. But I don't know, that's going to be an uphill battle to climb, because not only do you have to worry about the teams I just mentioned in the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Lakers, but of course you have to show tons of respect to the Denver Nuggets, who are the reigning NBA champions. Not only them, you have Sacramento, you have Dallas, of course, still, who didn't make the playoffs last year, but I think that they're going to be better, having Kyrie Irving from the jump. And then there's a lot of teams that are going to be interesting. Sacramento, I think they're going to continue to get better. You have the Grizzlies too, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Of course, Ja is suspended, but I think that they still have a really good and solid team, adding people like Marcus Smart, Derrick Rose, and other veterans in that nature. The Oklahoma City Thunder, I think they're going to take a huge jump, having Chet now, and of course SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, had an amazing year last year, made all NBA first team. Pelicans too, like, I mean, it's so stacked in the West, bro. It's crazy. I'm not counting the Warriors out because they'll definitely have a shot, but it's going to be a long shot. This video might be getting a little bit long, so I just want to highlight some teams real quick that I mentioned. We can talk about the Grizzlies real quick. Of course, Ja Morant's going to miss those first 25 games. The Grizzlies, they still have, of course, reigning defensive player of the year in Jaren Jackson Jr., who was also an all-star last year. They have Steven Adams, who's returning healthy. Not really sure when Brandon Clark is going to return from his Achilles injury, but he also adds some front court depth in Memphis. And then, of course, you have Desmond Bane, who's a really good scorer and has continued to improve throughout his time in the league. Luke Kennard, really good shooter. And like I said earlier, adding Marcus Smart is really going to help overall their team morale and just their defense and just team in general, honestly, because Marcus Smart, he's a really good player. The 2022 Defensive Player of the Year. They have the last 2 Defensive Player of the Year, so that's really huge for them. They have Zaire Williams, who they drafted a couple years ago, who can for sure take a little leap in terms of providing more of an impact. And also, like I said earlier, of course, D Rose, he's my favorite player of all time, so I'm going to be a little, not necessarily biased, but of course I have a soft spot talking about him. But even Desmond Bane was talking about D Rose recently, and he said that no one should be surprised at how good he played in the preseason so far, and it's what he's able to do still. In New York, of course, they had a lot of guards and things of that nature with the Knicks, and they had success last year, so of course he didn't really get any playing time. What we saw in the 2021 playoffs against the Atlanta Hawks, what D Rose could do still. He can still get buckets. He's 35 years old, but he's revitalized, and honestly, maybe that New York Knicks season last year was good for him. He got some more rest, was able to be a vet, and I think he's going to be revitalized and show how good he can still play for the Grizzlies, how much of an impact he's going to have when Ja Morant isn't there and when he's there as well, to be able to have a deeper bench in Memphis. And at first, as a D Rose fan, I wasn't happy with him signing in Memphis, but now it's been growing on me a lot. So the Grizzlies, they could be interesting when Ja gets back for sure, and that's one thing to keep a watchful eye on. There's so many things I could talk about, guys, but I don't want this to be an hour-long video. Don't want to take too much of your time, but we can talk about so many things, like the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like I said, they're going to take a leap, I feel like, with having SGA, having Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, having both Jalen Williams, and also adding Victor Oladipo, who I think is going to be nice for them. Of course, he suffered that injury in the playoffs last year, but he'll be able to add not only veteran presence, but some more scoring for the Thunder when healthy. So that's one team to talk about. You can't count out the teams like the Clippers, but Kawhi and PG have to stay healthy. And Westbrook, I feel like he's going to hold things down, but a lot of different components there. You have the Minnesota Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards. He's continuing to be able to better year by year. We saw in the FIBA World Cup, even though the USA disappointed everyone, he still played really, really well. And you can see a huge step coming into Anthony Edwards' game. The Rockets, like I mentioned earlier, I think that they're going to be competitive. Some people don't think that they're going to be good or competitive at all, but I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if they are maybe competing for that 9th to 10th spot in the play-in, because you have people like Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks who are going to get their young core to play up. Jalen Green, he could make a step. Jabari Smith Jr. can make a step. Amen Thompson, I think that he's going to be a dark horse pick for Rookie of the Year, even though he's coming off the bench, so he might not have much of a chance compared to Victor Wembanyama, Chet, and Scoot Henderson. The Rockets, I feel like they're going to be better for sure, especially where they've been the past few years. And the Pelicans and the Jazz, those teams are interesting to me as well, because the Jazz, Lauri Markkanen, he took a huge step last year being an all-star. And the Pelicans, of course, having Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and Zion, he just has to stay healthy. That's the only thing with Zion. We know how great he is. He just has to stay healthy. It's always that healthy component. But it's just so many teams in Western Conference who could be so good next year. It's really hard to predict, but I really love it. It's so much parity in the league, and that's why it's fun and strange. And then just going back to the Eastern Conference real quick before I end the video. So we talked about the Celtics and the Bucks, who I think will for sure be the top 2 teams in the East. But the Miami Heat, you can never count them out. Made the finals as the AFC last year, made the finals in 2020 as well. They're always going to be a threat to make the finals despite what's going on. We know the Heat culture is very real. The Knicks, we'll see what happens with them. I really don't think that they'll have too much of a chance to make the conference finals. I think the second round, like last year, will be their limit, but crazier things have happened. I said something about the Pistons earlier with Cade Cunningham. He can make a step. Only time will tell with that. Brooklyn, watch out for Brooklyn low-key. They could be an interesting team to be a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference this year. Ben Simmons, even though it was a preseason game, he did look more explosive, looked more confident. He was even shooting a little bit. So if the Nets get that version of Ben Simmons on a mission to prove people wrong, ready to hoop, along with Mikal Bridges, who took a step last year in the right direction, playing really good after being in Phoenix, and Cam Johnson and people of that nature, the Nets could be really solid. Cleveland, of course, having Donovan Mitchell in the second season with Darius Garland, Evan Mobley. That was a bad loss today, suffered against the New York Knicks in the first round, but I feel like they'll continue to get better. The Pacers, we'll see what happens with Tyrese Halliburton. Of course, he's an all-star guard. He's continuing to get there. I mean, like, there's so many good teams, guys. It's crazy. The Hawks with Trae Young. We saw what they did in 2021, making the Eastern Conference Finals. In the past couple of seasons have been a little bit shaky, but they're still going to be in the mix for sure. I don't really give this team much of a chance to be crazy, but LaMelo Ball, just watch out for how good he can be because he's been an all-star already in this league with the Hornets and the team around him. That's always the one thing about them. And of course, they drafted Brandon Miller. And then lastly, the Washington Wizards too, man. Jordan Poole being there. Kevin Garnett recently said that he expects Jordan Poole to have a James Harden type of leap.
Jordan Poole is the new James Harden. You remember when James Harden left OKC and he got to goddamn Houston and got right at it? It's the Jordan Poole show. I think Jordan Poole feels like he's been held back. And that's how I thought James Harden felt when he came out of OKC. I look for Jordan Poole to be top 5 in scoring this year. If you don't shoot more than 25 balls, I'll be shocked.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have not one but a couple 60 balls this year, I will be shocked.
Absolutely.
I'm looking for the Jordan Poole show. I'm Jordan Poole, I'm him. I'm here. I'm here and I'm him.
Which I could definitely see. I don't know about the multiple 60-point games because that's very hard to do in the league. But him and Kuzma will be interesting together. I don't think that they'll make the playoffs, but I think they can be a team that if you go in taking them for granted, they can beat you. They'll be fun to watch. That's a lot of different and dynamic storylines. Let me know in the comments down below, guys, what you think of this upcoming 2023-24 NBA season. Some of your predictions in terms of rewards, how you think your favorite team is going to do, how you think the league is going to be this season in general. Just so glad basketball is almost fully back. We're almost there. And yeah, guys, like I continue to say, the best sport in the world. I appreciate you guys watching always. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at SwaggyRuss, and also on TikTok at SwaggyRuss02 for cooking videos, shorts, and things of that nature. More videos on our way, guys. Hope you are doing well, being blessed. Take it easy, and y'all have a good one.